My guest for today is renowned motoring journalist Maceda Aguila.
Okay.
Together, we get into a discussion on various issues.
Okay.
So, Cap, anything?
Thank you for adding renowned, but I'll just say, I'll just stick to motoring journalist myself. Thank you very much for inviting me, Mike. I've watched a number of your videos, so I'm looking forward to sitting down and talking to you about anything and everything.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you. Hope you take something from this talk. Good morning, Sir Cap. It's good to see
Huwag
you.
naman, cup na lang.
Cap, sige. Yeah, very nice to see you. And
Thanks for having me, Mike.
yeah, just wanted to catch up with you and ask how things are doing. I know everyone's so busy now. I imagine how busy your schedule must be. Uh, but first, I just wanted to get your take on the automotive industry. Uh, what are some developments and how do you foresee these trends, especially with electrification, also hybrids coming about?
Yeah. Well, as you mentioned, I think if we talk about the auto industry now in the Philippines, particularly, the biggest thing would be, yeah, maybe the rise of, well, I see two things actually. Number one would be the rise of electrification, whether through hybrids, full EVs, and then secondly would be the rise of China headquartered brands, as you may know also. So I think these are two things that are sort of shaping the landscape and the experience of car browsers and buyers. And I think these are very exciting times, to be honest. I've covered the beat for a long time, and I've never seen. I like to always point out the fact that we are so spoiled right now, Filipino buyers, because at no point in our history has there been this many brands that people can choose from.
So many options, no? So much choices.
Yeah.
But sometimes it can be difficult to choose given most of the products are very high in technology. So you're getting a lot of value, but it's a bit confusing which one to choose, especially with the Chinese brands.
Yes.
There are so many new brands that we haven't heard of. But how do you foresee the Chinese brands? Do you see them getting a bigger share over the next 5 years,
Yes, actually, I see them. I
or
see
do
the
you see
market
them
perhaps.
eating each other up?
I think there's this initial observation that they're competing for a finite share of the market. But I think as things progress and more people are become aware or open to the fact that there are Chinese brands, good Chinese brands at that, then you will probably see more like a bigger share of that, and we may also see them eating into the share of the more established brands. It's maybe a controversial take, but that is, I think, one of the things that's also good for the market as more people become open to, let's call them, challenger brands from China. Then you see perhaps the traditional brands getting more, um, how should we say this, uh, not as dominant as before. I mean, for the immediate future, I still see a lot of brand loyalty coming into play for people. That's why they ask, a lot of people ask me, "Is this Chinese brand good? What do you think about this?" Things that I usually don't hear from more or for more established brands that people are more comfortable perhaps with, they have more confidence in. So I think once they get over this hurdle of what's this brand and what does this stand for and what does it mean for me, then I
Mm.
guess we can see a more balanced probably in terms of choices.
So I think with the more established brands, it's about perception. It's already trusted in the market, familiar names. So I think most of the volume still come from them.
Correct,
But
correct.
China brands, on the other hand, they're not sleeping also, so they're stepping up their game.
That's true.
You
That's
would
true.
agree.
But to your point, yes, because people are aware of other brands. I mean, these established brands, uh, and I think more notably also the after sales experience because they've been here for a while. So people actually know what they're getting. Okay, down the line, I can expect this much reliability
Yeah,
while keeping perhaps the. We also have to think about the
maintenance,
maintenance and even the value of the vehicle. Should you decide to sell it down the
resale
line, right?
value.
Yeah, the resale value. So I think these are still maybe not as proven yet or not as visible yet for brands, particularly the newer ones, newer Chinese brands. So I think that's the question mark that people are still probably or some people are still probably thinking about when they want to pull the trigger on buying a car.
What about hybrid vehicles? What's your take on it?
I think hybrid vehicles on the whole, they are a good bridgeway to full electrics because everyone's talking about how the ultimate goal for many manufacturers, many brands, is to go full electric or battery electric vehicles. Hybrid electric vehicles are provide a more perhaps realistic, easily deployable
Especially for the
solution.
Philippines, right?
Yes, where we still have a
Challenges with infrastructure.
correct. The charging infrastructure is still not up to par. So, as we've also seen, at least in from our perspective in for motoring journalists, we've seen a lot of um, action in terms of hybrids. Particularly recently, we've seen a lot of brands that have released pure electric vehicles and now just released hybrids. So, and then when I asked them, one of the executives, I asked him, "Oh, so why did you go for hybrids now when you actually have pure electrics?" He said, "Well, people have been clamoring for them. They've been asking us to release them. So
Mhm.
I think it's really again, as I said, I think for now this is the more realistic option if people want to go electrified or if they want to save on gas, basically, right? You go hybrid, so you don't have to worry about, of course, the usual range anxiety that comes with owning a battery electric vehicle.
You get
So
a bit of both with hybrid, right? Fuel efficiency is
that
also
too.
really remarkable with the hybrids.
Yes, yes. And from based on studies as well, when you look at buyers of battery electric vehicles, these are not these are people with another car or two more cars or three, which are ICE powered. Meaning, if you have a car, it's there's bigger chances, or it's not going to be a battery electric vehicle. Again, for the aforementioned reasons of range anxiety
Mm.
and all that. So, in other words, it's not people's go to the go to powertrain just yet, at least in the Philippines.
Common concerns, no? Usually battery, how they dispose that after some years, and range anxiety, and
Hmm.
it's not as tested yet, so there's still that push
That's
and
true.
pull that occurs.
That's true.
But would you personally buy an EV or hybrid, or are you still a bit hesitant, or your personal take?
Okay. Yeah. Um, Probably I'll go hybrid for the meantime. Although I've tested a number of pure electric vehicles, ranging from luxury brands to more mass market ones. I think in terms of ownership, I would probably go for, or I probably agree with that example that I told you before, that people do not have battery electric vehicles as their only means of transportation. So meaning if I'm willing to add a an electric vehicle to my vehicles now, but again, if I had to choose and that's the only option, I'd probably go for a hybrid if that's my only means of transportation.
Plus, there are perks now, right? Like lower tax and
Lower tax.
exempted sa coding.
Yeah.
And like,
Definitely, those are added sweeteners
yeah,
to. I'm so glad also that government has seen
yeah.
that these powertrains or this category really needs help.
Plus, prices have lowered for most
Yes,
of these hybrids out
that's
there.
right. That's right. So that's more good news for us, for the average car buyer. But again, um, I'm not saying that electric vehicles do not have a place yet in the Philippines, but probably it's more of it's nice to have them for particularly for people who are maybe still afraid because when they see these electric vehicles, they have all the advantages that have been advertised: power on demand, the torque is unreal, and a lot of them have very good range already. So
Yeah, and they exceed 400 kilometers.
yeah,
Some.
some I even tested one that had 600 kilometers. So what I do is I usually when I have an electric vehicle land out, I usually take it to Clark,
Mhm.
so and back. It's probably like 200 kilometers, and then when I get back, there's usually a lot of charge left, and I don't do any hypermiling stuff like low AC maybe or turn it off, or then you know super like mindful of the power. So I think for people who want to see or who want to use electric vehicles for their daily commute to and from the office, it's more than enough range.
Yeah.
So in that regard, I think it's good. Again, it's good to have electric vehicles here, at least as far as raising the awareness is concerned.
Me personally, I think I would go hybrid. I think
Okay,
it's a good option, especially if they can lower the price further. I think we
that's
would
true. That's true.
that would be interesting for the Philippines because we're a unique market. So
Okay,
yeah.
but let me ask you, what's your take on or what's your stand about electric vehicles themselves? Do you see them um, from a from your standpoint? Do you see them getting more traction in the near future, or do we still have to um, does something have to happen before more people? Kumbaga, there's the tipping
uh,
point. What's the tipping point here?
I
Do you
think
think?
it's still a bit far for us with EVs. Well, given a lot of anxiety, reluctance. But I think it's inevitable that we'll be headed there. But I think not anytime soon. But now there are EVs running around, but konti lang.
Mm,
I see a steady growth,
okay.
but not substantial volume growth.
Okay. So what's the biggest thing that needs to happen before, at least in your mind, what's the biggest thing that needs to happen before people jump all in? Not really all in, but in a more significant way to electric vehicles.
Basically, seeing it more on the road and having more charging stations around.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what people worry about, basically, if they get stuck or, you know.
That's true. That makes sense. Yes,
But
I agree.
I also get feedback that computing regular vehicles, petrol, diesel, as opposed to EVs, it will come out similar or the same, yung gastos.
Ah,
Down the road,
okay,
like the
okay,
battery disposal, it's
okay,
not much of a difference. For
okay,
some, that's their take
okay. But
on
I
that.
think that battery disposal thing that's something that people don't really think about yet when particularly when their vehicle is still brand new. But maybe, and this is something that I also am looking forward to. Probably I want to see how the resale value of EVs here in the Philippines pans out because we've heard, of course, that in the United States
Mm-mm.
it's really very low. So you have people letting go of their Teslas, for instance, and then buyers getting them for very cheaply, very cheap.
Yeah, but
So that's something, yeah. But for the and I forget which brand did this, but for a per kilometer on a per kilometer basis, they've computed that EVs really give you a lot of savings.
so we'll see.
Yeah.
I think we need objective data and
Yes.
we need to see more of it on the road to actually really test pros and cons, but certainly there are pros and cons on both sides.
That's true.
And I'm sure there's one side of the spectrum that's pushing for EVs, of course, the environmentalists. And on the other side, of course, those oil companies would push more for hybrids and the traditional vehicles.
That's true. That's true. Although some companies, well, I can think of Shell, for instance. They were starting to roll out their Recharge brand, which is basically an EV charging facility within their gas station. So I guess that's the sign of the times that they are already getting there, perhaps future proofing themselves for what is probably inevitable.
But certainly with more options, EVs, hybrids, the consumer wins basically.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's always, and I'm all for that. I'm all for that. That's why I said also that it's it's a great time to be looking for cars because you have all the choices are all yours. You know, you have. That's why I think people should not not obsess. Maybe obsess is not the term, but really take their time
Yeah,
to
weigh their options.
yeah to
make
weigh
their
your
choices.
options because it's you have that privilege now, which we didn't have when I was growing up. There were only a few brands. Now choose, and even if you're looking at particular price point, there are chances are there are so many options already in that price point.
Especially now that EVs are much cheaper because that day is yung mga 2.5 up. But now we have EVs, well, we have BYD, MG,
Mhm.
and price point is around 1.5. So it's really a win for
And the Jitor ice cream, of course.
Of course,
Let's not forget that.
699K.
Yeah,
right?
I've seen a number of
SRP.
those on the road. So
Tour
I
ice
guess,
cream.
yeah. So that tells me also that people shopping in that price point, they're not afraid to go EV. Diba?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
all good.
So yeah, good for everyone.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so anyway, maybe we can delve a bit more into your background, your humble roots, because I know you've been in the industry with media for a long time, and you've seen the changes, I'm sure, across the decades.
Mhm.
How did you get into that? Why did you choose journalism as a profession, and why the inclination towards motoring? Are you really a car lover, enthusiast?
Okay, well, actually, when I started my first profession of choice, or I wanted to be a lawyer at one point in my life. And that's why I took up I started to take up political science in UP Diliman. And then I had this particular classmate who's a politician now, very known national. Uh, uh, I won't mention
Yeah.
his name. Anyway, what happened during our classes was that he'd have a running discussion with our professor, and it was like just one on one, and all of us were there. Were like, what are we even doing here? And I guess that coupled with the fact that I sort of didn't feel I don't know the excitement or enthusiasm with political science itself. I thought I, I I retraced my steps and then thought to myself, what am I happiest with or doing? And the answer was writing. So I told my mom then I don't want to study political science anymore. I want to study journalism, and she said yes. And so I made a shift, and then actually my first job, if you will, can believe it, I was an editorial assistant for a publication called Woman Today Celebrity Recipes. That was in 1992.
Mm.
So one of the things that I did then, that was before the internet became, you know, as pervasive as it is now. One of the things I was doing then was researching for recipes from books, and I do interviews with like executive chefs in hotels, owners of restaurants,
Mm.
and when I interview even celebrities, mga artista, when I interview them, I would ask them, "So, what's your favorite dish? What's this? Or do you have a dish with us that you can share the recipe of?" So that was that kind of. I was in that space. Fast forward, when I first got into the newspaper, which is the Philippine Star, that was in 1998. Um, I was with the lifestyle section. Again, not yet motoring. So I was covering anything from fashion shows to perhaps familiarization trips abroad. So different, even sports at some point I was covering sports. So motoring was like one of the things that I was thinking of then, but uh, to be honest, I had no perhaps no way to of entering it because I didn't know people. I didn't know,
Mhm.
until one day I just asked this friend of mine who was an editor of the Star. Said, "Hey, can I just try to review something?" Oh, yeah, sure, why not? And so introduced me to people, and I got my first lend out, and then, hey, this is good. And to your point earlier, I'm not really like a hardcore car guy. I see myself more as a perhaps like an average motorist who looks for the things that will please him in a vehicle. Meaning, if it rides good,
Mhm.
if fuel economy is spot on, if the aircon is working or even cold, then it should be a good thing, right? So the way also that I write right now is to sort of convey to my readers, because of course my responsibility is to my readers, not to make it too technical. Sabi nila nosebleed, di ba? I don't want that. So at least I'm aware of trying to make things more digestible in terms of information about cars, because not every car buyer is a car geek or
Yeah,
a
not
car guy.
too technical.
Not too technical, right? Some people just want to, okay, so just tell me, is it a good car or what?
Yeah.
Or, what's the experience like? Is it, does it feel cramped inside? Or in the case of electric vehicles, does it give me good range? Is the power good?
Yeah.
Does it handle good? Is it bumpy? So
That's what most assess. The performance, the comfort, the design boils down to those aspects.
yeah, yeah.
Fuel
So
economy.
that's true. That's true. And so, and for a time also, Mike, I don't want to take so much time because I have such a long career. There was a time also I went corporate with real
Okay.
estate companies, working as their PR, Corpcom. So then my writing took a back seat. I mean, writing for publication. I never stopped writing for the Star. That's one thing. But then I thought to myself, but am I happy really in this like corporate communications hat? I wasn't. So my wife told me, why don't you just go back to, media, journalism? And so, yeah, I went back and I had to reestablish myself again. I was writing a bit of tech and a bit of motoring. So, and then from then on, this is me.
So that's really
And
your
now I'm
core
here. Yeah. Yeah, I guess
journalism
it really makes me,
writing.
I'm happiest when I'm writing an article or editing an article or covering a motoring event.
Okay, so you write how many articles for Business World, Philippine Star,
I write for,
and
yeah,
you have a
Business World.
YouTube channel.
I have a
I
YouTube
saw.
channel.
And
Uh,
you have TikTok. Do you?
no, I don't do TikTok. I have an Instagram account, which I do reels for, sometimes with the help of my wife. Um, so yeah, I think right now, to your question earlier, the difference between then when I was starting to now, it's like massive, because before, when you look at the, let's say, the media invite list of a let's say a PR firm, you can categorize it into print, meaning newspapers, magazines, and then you have radio, and then you have TV, and then wala na, nothing else. Now, of course, as you know,
So
now you
many
have
platforms.
so many platforms. You have content creators, and we say content creators. There's so many, platforms that they use. And of course, the notion of the influencer is also now in the mix. These were things that we didn't have before. So everything was a lot simpler then. I think also the circle of people that we knew was a lot smaller also, for good or for bad. So yeah, there's on one hand, there's so many platforms now that I guess you don't really have to compete with everyone, because again, like in cars, people have so many choices now. It's up to them.
Mm.
So it's just a matter of perhaps putting out quality content that people will remember you
Yeah.
for and will choose you automatically for.
Yeah, there's uniqueness to the different
Yeah.
personalities out there. Some
Mhm.
are more inclined with the technical aspect. Some are more unconventional with
Yes.
how they market themselves.
Yes. Yes.
So
Let me ask you then. Have you? When was the last time you picked up a newspaper to
long
read
time.
it?
Yeah. So yeah, the times are really changing
Yes. So
rapidly.
it's really different. So yeah,
Yeah.
there's a massive change as far as how people consume content or search for content.
Yeah. But there are still pros and cons. Because simpler times then, but very straightforward. You get the news. But like now, it can be very scattered. It can be
True.
all over the place.
True.
It can
True.
be very noisy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
So, but interesting because
hmm,
it's very. There are so many avenues, and it's exciting. So there's this fast-paced shift that's going on. So very different
yeah.
times. I'm sure you can
Oh
compare
yeah,
with.
yeah, definitely. But to be honest, I've never heard of the term fake news until this sort of this shift into online happened, because you never hear that before. Fake news.
Yeah.
Fake news. What's that?
Now it's harder to discern because anyone can throw anything out there.
Yes.
Anyone can
Yes.
be, well, wear a journalist hat with their
Oh
with
yeah,
their field, and they can just push a certain narrative.
that's true. One of the discussions that I have with some of my more seasoned friends as well, the colleagues, um, I think during my time, old school, you sort of go up the ranks, and the more important message, I think, is there's a sort of mentorship that happens. So you have an editor or you have a
Yeah,
superior, and then they show you the ropes. I think in some, I'm not saying all, but content creators, for instance,
they
they
think
may
they know
not
better.
they may not have that benefit of
Ah,
someone telling them, "Uy, mali yan," or "This is not the way to behave," probably, or stuff like
but
that.
I think that's an issue now because with the Gen Zs, they can be more independent
Yeah, independent is
and
good.
maybe easily triggered or
Mm,
some. I get that insight that it's a different mindset where certain values aren't quite the same. How certain approaches
probably,
or the
probably.
discipline is different.
I think again, maybe that may be a function of them not having, as I said, mentorship, right? Like, how would you know how to comport yourself if no one has ever told you, "Hey, you don't do this when you're here. You don't. This is how you do it." I mean, so you have to have some guidance. And again, I'm not saying everyone's like that, because I've seen very good content creators, in terms of, when I say good, not just in the content that they put out, but the way that they behave themselves. You know what
Mm.
I mean?
Yeah,
So we hear that a lot right now. There's a lot of people who feel that they're entitled to this and that, and
some, but not all, of
yeah,
course.
yeah, not all. Again,
But a
there's
lot
that
of
qualifier.
interesting characters out
Yeah,
there, definitely.
yeah,
But it adds new flavors.
yeah. That's you.
Adds a
Not
uniqueness.
all savory flavors, not all sweet. So yeah, I think that this is engendered by the fact that, again, some people just do it themselves, or they don't know any better because they've never had anyone to teach them how it's supposed to be. Because I'd like to think that I've had editors who were very good, who are very good, and you know, you emulate. So
Well, pros and cons.
pros
I
and
think
cons,
we
yes,
roll with the changing times and
that's true.
learn from whatever mistakes that are made and just progress, continue
Mm.
to further progress.
That's why I think that's also a. I mean, that's not. It's basically not my problem, but it can sometimes pose as problems to, let's say, the brands, or in your case, distributors, who are perhaps also learning to navigate um, whom to trust
Yeah,
or whom to work with.
yeah.
So
There's a lot of discernment that must
yeah,
happen.
yes, yes, as in life.
Yeah. can be a wrong path to take. This can be
That's
the
true. That's true. Yeah.
more practical path to take. Depends. Case to case na. No?
Yeah.
It's a basically interesting journey that
Yeah.
we go through.
Exactly. Everything's is in flux. Eh. We all learn. Learn by
Okay.
doing.
What other things are current events now? Like what's a standout for you?
Oh, standout. Uh well,
Well, with motoring or
motoring. Okay. Well, for motoring, what I see is yeah, I'm really excited to see how manufacturers play this out, this whole EV thing, because it's something before that, and remember, I've been covering for a while. So before we were like looking at it from afar, like really electric vehicles? It's not gonna, no, it's not gonna take off here. Talaga? What's the range on that? Like, and before, remember, the range was like ridiculously low.
yeah,
So it was just we were like considering it from a distance. Ah, yeah,
low range and high price.
yes, and high price. Yes, of
So
course.
it
Which are
wasn't
which are
really
now
feasible. It wasn't a
yes,
practical option at all.
yeah, yeah. So that's one of the things that I think are one of the things being addressed right now or being changed for the better. You have increased range and lower prices.
Mm.
So when you have that, when you hit a sweet spot somewhere, then you'll have more people adopting them. Plus, you have, of course, you never annoy you never forget that there are people who like to be early adopters.
Mm.
Okay, we're first here. Okay, now I have my EV
Ah,
and stuff like that. But they're necessary because they help remove the not really stigma, but perhaps the doubt
yeah.
for other people. As you said earlier, the more electric vehicles we see on the road, then the better it is for
Yeah, there's more trust that comes
yeah,
as people see it. Oh, then they're more assured that it's okay.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
turning out well.
That's true. That's true. One of the issues I think in the industry right now also pertains with Chinese brands. Of course, we don't we cannot not talk about perhaps the tensions in the West Philippine Sea, or even by extension, even that Pogo thing that's happening right now, the Pogo issue. So I think that's also sort of, and we see this in the comments. One of my friends um, says that whenever they post something about China brands, then they get trolled or get
Trolls.
bashed or get bashed. So I think it's a tricky thing, and we've had I've heard of this famous motoring personality also. I'm sure you've heard, which we will not name, who said that I'm not gonna endorse any China brand, So I think it's sort of charging the or making things a little more murky as far as acceptance of China brands is concerned. But again, maybe if you ask me what my stand there is, um, it's quite a complicated issue because it's again, as I mentioned earlier, number one, it's good for the market to have more options, and number two, these Chinese brands when they're brought in here by the by Filipinos, they employ a lot of people, and they make a lot of money for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So
Jobs are
yeah,
created. A
jobs
lot.
are created.
Economy is stimulated. Yeah.
Exactly. Diba? So it's easy to perhaps bash and say, but at the end of the day, we also have to think about our fellow Filipinos who are benefiting from this. They're not.
But I think it's really inevitable. There will be brands that
Oh, yeah,
it will continue to grow.
that's true.
Then these hurdles, I think they come, but
Yeah, that's the hope. That's
they
the
come
hope.
and go. The
That's the hope.
hurdles.
Because at the end of the day, what we really want is for everyone to, of course, prosper, have more choices, get access to vehicles that are good and
Yeah.
at the prices that people want. And I've heard one of my friends also, who I asked to write a column about this matter. He said that, oh, but remember, there were times also in the past where we didn't like the Japanese brands, and they stood for something. We were in a war with them for Christ's sake, diba? So I mean, so there was a stigma also at some point, and to be honest, probably the Japanese brands weren't too good in the past either. So look where we are now. Same thing with Korea. There's a developmental
Yeah,
phase.
there's that honeymoon phase or
Yeah,
that birth pains, all
yeah,
of that.
birth pains. Yeah,
Like Japanese had a bad rap before regarding how they were perceived as brands, but then now they're really the go-to, even with the Korean brands.
yes,
And now that happened with China brands about 15 years ago, but now it's really more visible. So
that's true. That's true.
I think these are
So
really part of development
yeah,
and,
yeah.
and
But I
progress.
but I think particularly for the Chinese brands, they've had a much shorter development time than Japanese or the Koreans or maybe even the Americans. For the fact that because of the fact that at some point, and I remember this very distinctly, we were going to China before all of the China brands got here. We were going to China, and then we saw the partnerships that they did. Because of course, remember there was a time that you couldn't do business in China without it being a JV. So, for instance, Volkswagen would have to partner
Yeah.
with, you know. So, what that did was to sort of accelerate the development for the Chinese, because of course now they know how to make cars as well.
Yeah.
So
Very aggressive.
very aggressive.
All
Yes.
these Chinese
Yeah.
companies,
So
they're not sleeping, so they're
they are
really
not.
a major
They,
power. And
and I was very surprised at the level of um, fit and finish and polish and technology. We were
yeah,
there in China to look at
yeah,
even the factories are very up to speed. And if you weren't in if you didn't see the people, or you didn't know where you were, you thought that you were in Europe or
yeah.
you know.
Ibang level.
Yes. So again, I think that's one thing to take a look at. And I was there at Beijing for the motor show recently, for the auto show, and there are still so many brands there that I didn't know.
Yeah,
So it's like, wow, can you imagine? We think there are so many brands here right now, China brands. There are a lot more there that they can bring in here,
that's right.
right? So I think again, I guess at the end of the day, it's a matter of if you provide consumers with more choices, then you're doing them a favor.
Okay. Okay. On a lighter note, what are some of your hobbies? Maybe get to know you
Hobbies.
a bit more
Oh,
on a
hobbies.
personal level,
Um,
or
well,
exciting things like
okay.
sports
Yeah. Well,
or new trends.
okay. The only sport that I play is bowling, which I wish I could play more of. At some point of my life, I was playing in the league like maybe 4 times a week max, and then I would be playing in the open tournaments. Then I get the
Bowling.
chance to
About golf,
No, I tried golf sometime, but the problem was my bowling suffered. So
the
rather
form.
than suck at both,
Excel at one.
at least be decent.
Decent.
I'm not gonna say excel. Maybe decent in one. Yeah. So because something to do with muscle memory.
Yeah,
something-
muscle
yeah.
memory. It's
So
like your body's confused.
Yeah.
You're doing two sports.
yeah, but don't get me wrong. I like golf. I like the walk. I like the sense of peace on the golf course. But again, I don't see it as something very sustainable for me. One of the things also, I used to have a bands actually, um, and during one of my earlier bands, I was playing the guitar and singing, and then for my latter band, I was playing drums. So yeah, that's also something I like to do if I had more time.
Right now, what drives you? What keeps you moving forward? What keeps you
Deadlines.
going?
Deadlines always keep me moving, and these deadlines, of course, they don't end. Um, Only on perhaps the odd day when my section will come out on, let's say, a national holiday or whatever, or that we don't have an issue for. I mean, business world has an issue for it. But basically, even when I'm abroad, I'm thinking about the
Deadlines.
deadlines. Yes, and I think it's always inspiring, I guess, in a way, because I think how many people have this kind of outlet. And I also write for the Star as well. I still continue to be, at least when I have time or when I'm given assignments, I do write for the Star. But my main hat right now is focused on Business World's Velocity section, our motoring section, of course. Sometimes I also get to write for People Asia. I write profiles and stuff like that. On occasion, I also write for Esquire
Mm.
Philippines. What else? So yeah, basically a lot of writing. I think writing makes me happy. I mean, I've said that, but
Keeps you
yeah,
going.
yes,
You're
keeps,
passionate about.
yeah, keeps me excited. That's why, um, when Chat GPT came into being, I was like, why? I love to write it. Why would I use that?
Yeah.
So unless I didn't know how to write,
So you always had a knack for writing, even in your high school days.
even elementary days,
Oh, it was
actually.
there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And uh, actually, it was so funny because they asked us to write something during our elementary days. I remember this very well. Um, I think it was a series of poems, and then so the teacher asked us to do that, and then when I submitted mine, it's like the teacher had took me aside and said, "Kap, did you really write this? Because I don't think you wrote this." What? No, I wrote this, ma'am. So yeah, I guess it started from there. And then also,
Hindi
I,
nagkapaniwala.
hindi mo ako paniwala. Ma'am naman. That's me. So yeah, I guess, and I don't know. I like reading books. I like
What sort of books? Like self-help or biography?
I like
History?
yeah, a lot of history.
Yeah, a lot to learn from
Yes, a lot of
things that
yeah,
have happened.
yeah. Science fiction, like science fiction as well. Yeah, but yes, history is always very nice to you know to study it, so we don't it's just a cliche, so you don't repeat the errors that people did.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess that's one thing I hope that the future generation can also or will never forget to do is read books.
Okay. All right. In our life, we go through a lot of pain, struggles. What advice would you impart to people struggling? Well, everyone's constantly struggling with something. Every day we go through challenges. We try to combat all of this in career, in our relationships, with family. We try to set things in order to prevent further chaos. What would you impart to people struggling out there?
Wow. Okay. Well, I guess it's always to keep faith. I know that might sound corny, but yes, keep faith and pray. Because I think prayer will give you calmness,
Guidance,
and
calmness.
guidance. Uh, Always know that there's someone up there looking for you, looking out for you, and of course, yeah, it also helps to like when you're feeling down, you have to look at all the again, it's a cliche, but you count your blessings because when you count your blessings, you realize, oh, I've been blessed. I have been blessed, and like what people also say, when you look at someone who's probably in a worse situation than you, then you have no right to complain,
Mhm.
diba? We see that a lot, and yeah, and then when I'm feeling down, then I do something that makes me happy. Take my wife out for a date, may play bowling. I think it's maybe my message is you should when you're feeling you're in a funk or you're down, then don't dwell there and lay and keep and stay there. Do something to lift yourself up.
Lift yourself.
Yeah, it's okay to feel
Have
bad because we
have
can't.
down days,
Yeah,
right?
we can't be
It
happy all
really
the time.
happens.
That's weird. If we're happy 100% of the time, that's also weird.
Yeah.
So yeah, but the thing is, you try to mitigate your lows and your highs. Probably maybe that's the advice is when you're sad, look for something that or do something that makes you happy. And realize again how blessed you are.
So I think many struggle with coping. They wanna stay strong, but some are more fragile. So that's why we see a lot of uncertainties that occur
That's true.
and pain.
And that I think that was a big challenge during the we're talking earlier about the pandemic. I think that was a big challenge for everyone.
Yeah, the
The
uncertainties
anxiety.
of life. You don't know
Mm,
what's gonna happen, and you try to get by or do the right thing or move forward. But of course, there are some things unforeseen.
oh yeah, definitely. You can't. We can't. We hope to, but we can't control everything.
Yeah, some things within our control,
Yeah.
some things beyond.
What's
So
that? What's that? You accept the things that you can't control.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. But we also play our responsibilities, do our
Yes.
roles, and hope for the best. So
Yeah.
I think that's my general take on
Exactly. As long as you
life.
put in the work,
You
you
make
can.
an impact,
Yeah.
you help others, and
Yeah.
so forth.
Exactly. So I
In
think that's
whatever field we're in, because I think everyone has a different path. Like you're in journalism, some are in business, some are in entertainment. So we excel at different things. So we're called upon to do different things.
it's really about also applying yourself. So I think the fulfillment comes in many forms for different people. So I guess for me the fulfillment is in knowing that I put out a good article or I'm doing my best at my job. Then
Yeah, and
again,
that
everything will
really,
take care of itself.
and that impacts the general society. What you do, especially the articles, it reaches a broad base.
Yeah, yeah, true, true. This is one of the tips. Also, I think I've told some of my I had the chance to mentor some people. I tell them always, don't take your article lightly. Remember that the byline that you put or you attach to your article will be there forever. So
Yeah, that's immortalized. That's
yeah,
what
that-
you write.
yeah,
It's someone a
that's your
100 years
brand.
from now can
Yes,
read
that's your
that.
brand. And if you write something that
That's
sucks,
you. That's
you will be remembered for writing something that sucks or untrue or
yeah.
diba? So
Um,
that's why I think that's what people need to realize also, especially the younger people who may just be after the grind without actually, how should I say it, knowing that it will impact them and it will impact them in the future.
yeah.
Yeah.
Some are after the destination when
That's
it's the
true.
journey that matters.
And what's that they say? The internet remembers.
Yeah. Okay. What gives? What are your spiritual views, if you don't mind, or like what gives your life meaning and purpose, and what do you think occurs after we pass on?
Wow, that's that's a deep one, huh? Well, I'm a Catholic, raised Catholic. I studied in a Catholic school. I won't claim to be religious or overly religious, but I do believe
Higher power.
there's a higher power, and we're destined for a better place after this one. So my view there would be, as long as while we're here, it's a
We make
temporary place for us. It's a stop to somewhere else that's better. Hopefully, we should do our part in making a positive difference, because I think there would be a waste of a life not to,
not to do
yeah,
your whatever
not
you're called
not
upon.
do your part.
Do your calling.
Yeah, whether it is to write articles or sell cars. I mean,
Yeah.
we are meant to be where we are for a reason. I think I'd like to think that. So as long as you say again, I did the best of what I can do without perhaps without fooling people, without umaagrabyado, you know. So I think it's that's our mission. That's our mission. So yeah, and I'm looking forward to, not looking forward, but maybe
Well,
I
we're all
do.
headed there.
Yeah, we're headed there, right? I will be happy to, when that day comes. I wish to see the people who have gone ahead. Diba? That's what we believe in, and to say otherwise, I think would be, diba, parang hubris, because some people don't believe in Again, I respect your views. Probably you don't believe in a higher power, and this is it. Parang, but really, um, I don't think so.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. There's a lot of mystery
Yes,
surrounding our
we don't
lives.
know everything, but I'd like to think we know that much, and that's correct. So that we'll all be reporting for duty upstairs. Hopefully upstairs.
Yeah, I think we hope for the best, basically. Do our part, hope for the best. Okay. Yeah, we covered on a lot of ground today. Thank you for your insights. Anything you'd like to impart or a message to whoever might be watching this, or anything you'd like to cover?
Okay. Well, first off, thank you again, Mike. I mean, this is a very interesting interview and not quite what I expected because there's so talk about
Yeah, yeah,
anything from
various subjects.
yes, which I think it's also good to sort of revisit your values once in a while, and to think about
Yeah, I
stuff
think
like
it
that.
goes back to values because if we don't have some foundation in what we do, then it's all gonna be chaotic.
That's true. That's true.
So we need that backbone in how we orient ourselves.
Oh yeah, yeah. We have to
But
have our principles, otherwise it's
yeah,
wild west, as I like to say.
yeah,
So yeah, maybe my message. Well, again, thank you very much
yeah,
for having me here. Uh, I hope that people. I mean, I want to tell people that because of course I'm covering motoring. No? I'd like to tell people that you should um, really consider yourself lucky to be living in these times. I asked. We were talking about Ian Veneracion a
yeah.
while ago.
I saw
That was
you
that was one of the
interviewed
things he
him
told me.
recently.
Yes, that was one of the things he told me. What a great time to be alive, he said, because there's so many brands out there, and we are basically spoiled. We are
Yeah,
spoiled in
so
that.
much at the push of a button.
Oh
You can
yeah,
get info, get all these options.
and so crazy, right? I mean, now when I see an analog gauge, I'm like, oh, this car is old, because everything now is like digital, right? So again, it's a great time to be alive in terms of the options that we have in cars. At the same time, I mean, this doesn't remove the responsibility from the buyers to do their part. If you're looking for a new car, then I'm sorry, but you also have to do your part to research, to do a test drive. Funnily enough, that's one of the things someone told me. People do their research, but not enough people do test drives, whatever. I hope that's not the case
Test drive
anymore.
is the ultimate
Yeah, it's
way to
yeah,
experience.
yeah, because that will also show you if you fit well in the seat, for
Yeah,
instance, right? So that's probably my message. And if I may plug my
yeah, sure.
my
Plug it
fledgling
in.
YouTube channel, nothing like Mike's yet, but
Uh,
Uncapped. You can look for it on YouTube. User is Cap Aguila, KAPAGUILA. And of course, I also have an Instagram account. It's Cap Maceda Aguila. Um, and I put out reels there. I do a lot of interviews, like you. I do a lot of interviews, and yeah, post a lot of motoring related content.
okay.
So please, ano nga sabi nila, click, like, and subscribe.
Yeah,
That would be great.
yeah. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. I appreciate your insights and looking forward to seeing you more
Yeah,
often.
hope to see you soon again.
Yeah.
Let's
Well, we'll
let's talk
meet.
some more.
We're in similar we're in the same industry
Oh
basically,
yeah, yeah,
and we're gonna bump into each other
yeah.
a lot.
Much luck to you.
So yes, thank
Keep
you.
this going.
Also, more
Support
power to
support
you.
pa natin si Mike.
Yeah, thank you,
All right. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you very much.